everyone. It's time for Out There with the Birds with your hosts, Bill Thompson III and Ben Lizdas. Now here they are, two people who would always rather be out there with the birds, Ben and Bill.
Hey Ben, it's good to hear from you. Good to talk to you. We haven't talked in a while. I've been traveling.
Yeah, welcome back from India, Bill.
I know, it's awesome. You've been skiing.
Yes, it's that time of year again where I suppose I get out and do that, don't I?
You do. It is your way of greeting the winter season. So, what do you have what's on your playlist today?
Boy, there was a lot of stuff going on while you were gone. It was hard to just limit myself to a few things, but I've got stories that touch on molecular scatology.
Scatology.
Yeah, molecular scatology. We can get into that in a bit. A soap opera on the tundra.
Okay.
And then also two different tales about the give and take of being a wild bird in America today.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's a lot of drama right there, actually. Well, maybe not the scatology so much, but...
Yeah. Well, a couple things I've got on my hit list here. One is just to talk a little bit about India. I just returned from India. The second one is to talk about the American Birding Expo. We've got some big news about that. Third thing is I wanted to give a little shout out to our buddies at the New River Birding Festival because they've opened up registration, and that's one that always sells out every year.
I love that event.
It's a great event. You and I will be there. And then I just also wanted to do something called The Song in My Head, which is talking about what music I'm listening to right now.
Gotcha. So this isn't necessarily the bird song in your head. This is just the music in your head.
Right. It could be either one. We'll keep people guessing. But right now, for today, it's going to be music. Okay?
That sounds good to me.
So why don't you kick it off? Blow our brains out with some new...
with some scatology?
Yeah.
All right, so this is interesting. This is some research that was recently published in the AUK, and essentially what the purpose of they were doing is they're going to these vineyards in Napa, and they were trying to figure out, are the bluebirds there eating the carnivorous beneficial pests that essentially prey upon all the insects that eat the vines and the grapes in the vineyards, or are the bluebirds themselves having an impact on these pest species? And the way that they did this, and I guess this is kind of a new thing for them, they studied DNA fragments from the bird's feces, from the bluebird species, and they have found out, based on this, that the bluebirds are primarily eating mosquitoes and herbaceous insects. So they're keeping their beaks away from these beneficial insects that they're using at these vineyards. So it sounds like they're carrying their own weight there. And I thought this was an interesting study, and of course, I jumped right away to how could this molecular scatology technology be applied to humans?
Right.
Obvious thing you'd ask yourself, right? I haven't come up with an answer yet, though.
Okay, maybe in our next episode. I tell you, I could have done tons of molecular scatology over in India. It would have been no problem.
I would encourage anyone who's listening to this podcast who has any ideas, email me, ben@birdwatchersdigest.com, and we'll see who responds in with their suggested use for molecular scatology with human beings here.
Yeah, cool, man. Cool. Well, that is super awesome. And what else you got? I know you have been combing the news for some interesting things. And any other poop, or are we off poop now?
I that's all I've got in the scat realm for today. So the other thing that I keyed in on here was this. So what I'm calling the soap opera on the tundra, which I thought was an interesting story. So essentially, there were some whitewater rafters up in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, rafting on the Congaccut River, and while they were there, spending the night camped out, they found a camera on the beach, and this was a fish and wildlife camera that had washed up from a big flood event that happened earlier in the year. So these rafters find this camera, and the camera's destroyed. They pull the memory card from it, and they see it's fish and wildlife property. So they get it to Fairbanks and get this memory card in the hands of the researcher. Turns out it's this guy who's been studying common eiders on the Beaufort Sea for many, many years. And what was interesting about this is that So there was a big flood event, wiped out 75% of all the cameras on this common eider nesting colony, effectively. And when they looked at all the images from this, essentially this is a unique nest that they put this camera on, because when the researchers had gotten there, they'd found both common eider and glaucus gull eggs in the nest together. And so the pictures revealed that there's effectively a turf war that came here between the eider hen and the glaucus gull. Glaucus gull wins, so the eider hen bails on the nest. Glaucus gull decides they're going to raise and incubate the eider egg with their own eggs. So pretty cool thing happens. So then the eider hen incubates, hatches, and this glaucus gull starts raising it as its own, regurgitating food for it, etc. And yet the glaucus gull eggs haven't hatched yet. So it's effectively two of these. There's two other common eiders that come flying in. This chick hooks up with them. They take off, and then a couple days later, boom, the glaucus gull eggs hatch.
Wow.
So it's pretty interesting. This kind of interspecies living together, and you think of cowbirds. I'm thinking about this with the context of nest parasitism in cowbirds, and the similarities and the differences. And one of the things that strikes me about this that makes this fascinating is that it seems to me that this eider chick was hatched, and granted, you had these other eider hens come in and take it off the glaucus wing gull's hands, but it hatched, and to no detriment of the glaucus wing gull chicks.
Right.
So you've got somewhere out there in birdland, there are some glaucus wing gulls and a common eider who are nest mates.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, like, does the glaucus wing gull go off and just live its life as a glaucus wing gull? Does it find itself strangely attracted to female common eiders? Does it dive down to the bottom of the ocean to try to get mollusks and things, which is what eiders, I think, eat?
Yeah. In this study that they were saying that the gull would try this surrogate parent in the gull would try to regurgitate to feed this eider chick, and the eider chick wouldn't have anything of it. It would just walk out of the nest and essentially get harassed by their gulls and get shooed back into the nest. So I don't think there's a long-term solution going on there, but a pretty interesting situation though, where it's kind of like cowbirds, but you didn't have these chicks competing at the same time or even being raised at the same time.
Right.
And I don't know if there's some kind of this is the beginning nugget of an evolutionary trend, is with the symbiotic relationship with these species or not, but
I think it's just egg dumping, probably.
Yeah.
So somebody comes in and just dumps eggs, and that happens a lot with water birds, ducks, and a lot with game birds as well. Where that's why a lot of duck nests will have normally large clutches, like 12 to 15 eggs, and then other duck species will come in and dump eggs in a nest that they find just because maybe their nest got predated, but they've still got eggs to lay or something. So, yeah, it's probably just that. But who knows? I'm not a scientist. I'm just a bird watcher.
All right. Well, so what do you got for us today,
Well,
Bill?
I just got back from India, like literally last night. And one of the things I do when I travel is on my iPhone, I start the stopwatch. When I leave wherever I'm going to. If I leave home, I'll start it just to see how long it takes me to get there. Because, when you travel to the other side of the planet, you're in a different time zone, and sometimes it's hard to figure out how long you've been actually traveling. So that stopwatch, and I don't usually look at it during the trip because sometimes that can be very depressing. Geez, I've been traveling for 18 hours and I'm still not there. I think this return trip from India might have been the longest single travel day I've ever had. And it was 39 hours and 8 minutes door to door. So
this is from when you left India.
When I left the Tiger Reserve and got in a car to drive 4 hours to Lucknow, India, where I waited around, got on a plane to fly to Delhi, and then I waited around at the Delhi airport for 5 hours for my 2 a.m. flight. And the neat thing about that flight from Delhi to Chicago, direct flight, 15 and a half hours, is that we took off in the dark at 2 in the morning, and we beat the sun from west to east, or from east to west, rather. We beat the sun all the way. We landed in Chicago, and just as I got into the terminal in Chicago, the sun came up. So the sun was chasing our airplane, around the whole time. And then the flight on the way back, you can sometimes watch the path of your flight on the little TV monitors in the seat in front of you. Gosh, we went over Afghanistan, Soviet Union, Finland, all of the Scandinavian countries, went over Greenland, came down through Nova Scotia and down into Chicago. I kind of wished we'd gone the other way, so I could have said I circumnavigated the globe, but anyway, got home safely, 39 hours, almost a full work week later. And it was great to get home, obviously, but India was fascinating. It's a country that has, I mean, I had heard a lot about India. I'd, read about India in books, and, it's been in movies and all kinds of stuff. And so I was very eager to go there. I was there for the Uttar Pradesh Bird Festival, this international bird festival, which was sort of a combination of an ornithological conference, sort of bird conservation series of presentations. And also there was a little vendor area that they had there. And um,
And this was your first time to India, right?
First time to India, yep.
Okay.
And it was incredible. I mean, India definitely assaults your senses. It's a very, very populated place. People have been living there for a really, really long time.
I've heard it can be pretty shocking.
It's pretty shocking in a lot of ways. I mean, it's very smoky, very, kind of smoggy in a way because of all the people and all the population. But it's also, it really makes you kind of thank your lucky stars for all the things we have, even simple stuff like, running water or hot water or flush toilets or anything. Because India, a lot of people that live there are living way below what we would consider the poverty line. Many of them subsistence farming or having little shops where they're just making enough money to go buy food for that day. But the Indian people that I met were delightful, incredibly friendly and welcoming. By and large, very gentle people. The birding was incredible. We weren't blessed with very good weather. In fact, I wore my winter coat nearly the entire time I was there.
What part of India was this in?
Uttar Pradesh, which is sort of north eastern India, and then we
Okay.
were in near a town called Bah, along the Chambal River, at the Chambal River Lodge. That's where the festival was, and then we went for the final few days to the Dudhwa Tiger Preserve, which is up near the border with Nepal. And it was even colder there because it's higher elevation and stuff. Did not see a tiger. We saw tiger
Oh, you're kidding
no,
me.
saw tiger footprints. It was sort of between seasons for them, and there hadn't been a lot of
Oh,
recent.
that must have been tough to walk away.
It was, and I actually had to come home a day early because of a little ticket mix-up. But uh, I got word from my friends that stayed for the extra day and a half of birding that they never did see a tiger. So I was sad for them, but happy that I didn't miss the sighting because I had to fly home. But you know what? I'm planning. I want to go back and see tigers, and I saw Indian rhino. Saw lots of evidence of
Nice.
Indian elephant.
Mhm.
Um, did not actually see one, but the birds were incredible. Tons and tons of birds I'd never seen before. Lots of drongos and leaf warblers, and all kinds of lapwings, and just Sarah's crane. It was really, really fantastic from a birding standpoint, and saw quite a few other animals too, like jackal and nilgai, and
Mhm.
so it was a neat trip. I would love to go back again and have a little bit more time in the field. As I said, the weather was kind of cold and foggy, um, and didn't really expect that. I sort of, in my mind, India has always been a land of, sun and heat and dry air, but it was kind of the opposite. Uh,
So how much time do you think you would take to do a trip like that again? So you spent 40 hours almost traveling back from there. So you kind of
right.
factor in the travel time,
Yep.
and obviously India is a huge country as
Right.
well. You were just in kind of one
Right.
corner of it, but I would think if one wants to go back and say I'm gonna bird India, you're looking at 2 weeks minimum, huh?
Yeah. I mean, going that far, it's really to just be there for 8 days. It's a little bit tough, but it's 10 and a half hours difference from Eastern Standard Time here in the U.S. So it's actually the jet lag factor. It hasn't hit me yet. I got home last night. I went to sleep at a normal time. slept pretty well. Although after these trips, I always have the anxiety dream that I'm missing the bus, because I've been so programmed to like, "Hey,
Hmm.
but so no, it was. I would if I went back, I would want to take a more measured pace and probably less driving to go from one spot to another. Um, I'd rather go to a place and bird there for a while and just kind of chill out. So, but we
Hmm.
we were the guests of the Uttar Pradesh government, and they put on the whole show there. And my friend Nikhil was the guy who coordinated it, and he did a really wonderful job. It was a great first experience in India, and I look forward to a chance at some point to go back and actually see some sunshine. One side note I want to say is, we did get to take a trip one late afternoon to the Taj Mahal, and that was pretty incredible.
Mm.
Not Trump Taj Mahal, the
The
fake one. I was at the original, the OG Taj Mahal,
real
and
deal. Yeah.
yeah, and that was just unbelievable. I mean, this guy built this for his queen, for his wife, and actually she died, and so he built it basically as a tribute to her. And man, what a incredible, intricate marble work and inlay of precious stones. And of course, there were probably 20,000 people there when we were there. But you got to take the Taj Mahal selfie, and
Yeah.
so that was really cool.
Nice.
Yeah. All right,
Nice.
back to you.
Well, so the other thing I've got here is kind of the give and take of being a wild bird in America today, and what I mean by that is it's got its ups and its downs. What do you want to hear first, the up or the down?
I want to hear the down first. Say
Yeah,
the up.
yeah, let's save the up for the last, right?
Yeah.
All right. So earlier on last week, there was a massive die-off of snow geese
Oh
in
man.
Montana. Yeah, this, kind of I guess what you'd call a perfect storm with a really late migration happening. And this was near Butte, Montana. They, typically during a migratory period, they might get between 2,000 and 5,000 birds coming through the Butte area. Well, this was late in the migration cycle, and there was a day last week where an off-duty worker saw a flock of about what he estimated were 25,000 geese in the air, and heading towards this open pit mine, which was the only open water at this point in Montana. And so essentially these geese started staging at this open pit mine and hitting this, I guess what you'd call water, this,
Yeah.
liquid there, and just a massive die off,
Right.
just a massive die off. It's one of those things where it's just, I think, highlights kind of where a species is getting the double duty of the double whammy of human impact here with the climate change and the late migration, and that kind of hitting with, of course, resource extraction with the open pit mines. Um,
Yeah.
I'm just imagining this off-duty Montana resources guy seeing 25,000 geese in the air. This is about 25 miles away from where this mine was, and and just recognizing it as an issue. And this guy actually got on the phone and tried to give advance notice to these workers at this mine pit,
Yeah.
but to no avail. I don't think you can stop that many geese from
Jeez.
landing right there. So
Yeah.
that's on the take part of the give and take of
Mhm.
birds interacting with humans. But on the upside, there was a Journal of Wildlife study recently, Journal of Wildlife Management, about ferruginous hawks, and this was done in New Mexico. And this I thought was pretty cool. They were studying hawk nest success rates and fledgling success in comparing totally rural areas with what they referred to as exurban areas, which is kind of like western suburban sprawl, one house every
Right.
20 acres or so,
Right.
and trying to figure out. They studied ferruginous hawks and were trying to figure out, well, what kind of habitat do they thrive in? Is it this one that's a little bit more fragmented, or is it the rural area? And what do you think happened here, Bill? Any guesses?
Well, I'm thinking since it's the upside that we're happy that they can survive just fine in ex-urban areas.
It was pretty cool, and and that was the case, and and the reason why is pretty fascinating. Essentially, it has to do with the diversity of land ownership in these areas.
Okay.
So the theory working here is that these ferruginous hawks were having a higher degree of success in what we'll call these suburban areas, because you would have multiple landowners over a certain size
Hmm.
plot of land, and the land management strategies were diverse and primarily focusing on prairie dogs. There weren't this They didn't find themselves in a situation which I think is more typical out west, where you have one ranch owner that will own a huge chunk of land and they can do prairie dog mitigation as they want. Whereas they can, wipe out a colony of prairie dogs if they want. They manage their land for their cattle and whatnot. But in these ex-urban areas, you don't get that. You have multiple interests. Some people like the prairie dogs around, some people
Yeah.
don't. But essentially, a variety of land management strategies are resulting in prairie dog populations being greater in these areas, and thus the frugivorous hawks benefit.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, isn't
That's a
that
great
cool?
bird. I love ferruginous hawks. I love
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I thought it was interesting about the prairie dog tie, and in one of these situations where fragmentation, I guess, at least for this species in this instance, seems to be doing pretty well. Good for the prairie dogs too, I suppose, huh?
For sure. Well, that's cool. The American Birding Expo, which you've been to both years, and it's been held the last two times, 2015,
Hmm.
2016 in Columbus, Ohio. Big news is we're going to move the expo to the East Coast. We're moving it to an expo center, the Greater Philadelphia Expo Center, just outside of, you guessed it, Philadelphia, kind of northwest of town. And I'm very excited about this because we're moving
Mm,
the expo to a place where there's a greater density of people and also in a happy coincidence, a greater density of bird watchers. So kind of looking forward to that. I don't have a lot else to say about it, but I just wanted to put the word
yeah.
out there. We're going to try and communicate this through all our channels that the American Birding Expo is moving to Philly, man. So anybody who's interested in knowing more about that can go to birdingexpo.com, and as details are sorted out, we'll be posting them there. And we hope the folks who listen to this podcast will consider coming to the expo. It's going to be September 29, 30, and October 1 this fall.
Maybe someone, maybe someone going there can book a birding trip to India, you think?
You never know. You never know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the expo is going to have a lot of stuff, as it always does. Probably a slightly different mix of exhibitors, but we're sure we're going to have at least 100, maybe 125 exhibitors at this expo, and
All
then
bird related, huh? That's great.
all bird related. Yeah. So, and you'll be there, and I'll be there, and our happy crew of BWD people will be there. So, birdingexpo.com, check it out. We'll see you in Philly in the fall.
Sounds like a plan, Bill.
Okay. What else you got?
That's it. That's all for me
That's all.
today.
Okay, two other things I want to talk about. One is our friends Jeff and Rachel and Keith,
Hmm.
who run the New River Birding Festival, have just recently opened registration for the New River Birding Festival, and that's an event you and I have done for many years. I think I talked
Ah,
you into coming to it originally,
yes, you did.
and I've been involved in it from year two on. And I think they're, I don't know, 12 or 15 years now. They've been going for a long time. It only has 100 or so people. It's in Fayette County in South Central West Virginia, right on the New River Gorge. It's a fabulous event.
The fun factor there is so
The
high.
fun factor, the food factor, the local brewery
Hmm.
factor. There's music, there are programs, there are field trips,
Yeah.
there are hot tubs. It's an incredible,
Great tour
yeah,
guides.
it's all-star cast of guides, and the
Yeah.
guides come back not because it's such a high-paying gig. It's because it's so fun, and it's almost like
Yeah.
not really guiding because you're there having fun with your friends and the attendees. And so
Yeah.
anybody wants to check on that, Google New River Birding Festival, or they can go to birding-wv.com, I believe is the URL.
Yeah. Just Google New River Birding Festival. You got it.
So that registration is open, and it will be full before too long. Final thing I want to say is I'm a music fan, and I love listening to music, and I often will download new music and listen to it when I'm traveling. But I downloaded an album this fall that I've been playing a ton, and it's the new album from one of my favorite bands, Wilco. It's called, the name of the album is Schmilko.
Yeah.
So it's Wilco Schmilko. Boy, I've been listening to that, and it's more of an acoustic take on their music than they've done in some of the more recent albums. But these guys are so creative, and they're so interesting, and they take their music to new places. And as a musician myself, I love listening to the arrangements and the lyrics. And Jeff Tweedy is the leader of that band. And if I could have one wish, I would love to play a gig or actually be part of the band Wilco, because to me, they are the epitome of truly creative uh, music output. And so Wilco Schmilko, if you check it out. You can probably listen to it for free on a bunch of different places.
Bill's music recommendation for the
There
week,
you go.
huh?
And I think I'm going to be coming with some of those. The song in my head. That's what I'll call it. So
I
I'm
like
going to be
that.
coming strong with some of that stuff every time. Okay.
I like it. I like it.
All right, buddy. Well, listen, we're just about to hit the 30-minute mark, which is probably, we probably lost people back about the 10-minute mark. But if we didn't, thanks to everybody for listening. This is episode 2 of Out There with the Birds, the podcast with Bill and Ben. 2 people who would always rather be out there with the birds, as Sasha says in our intro and outro. So please keep listening. Tell your friends about it, and we love to have you lend us your ears. So thank you so much. And Ben, as always, it's a joy and a privilege to get to talk to you. And
likewise, Bill. And I'll look forward to same place, same channel next week, huh?
Yeah, buddy. And listen, have fun skiing. All right. Hope you get lots of snow.
All right, sounds good. Take care, man.
Bye-bye.
That's all for this episode. Tune in next time for more engaging conversations with Ben and Bill. Until next time, good birding, and we will see you out there with the birds. Bye-bye now.